So hi everybody, I'm Katie, and I'm here to talk about not being a data dummy and protecting all of your data within your organization. So, let's start. So, once upon a time, in a boardroom far, far away, there was a stressed CEO. Now, you've got all of you, well, quite a few of you have got a couple of his employees, and they're pretty stressed too, as you can tell by their pretty awkward arms that are going all over the place, and they're a bit stressed out and a bit confused. So, what happened with this CEO specifically is he knew there was nothing secure. He knew that he had a data problem. He knew that he needed to put some kind of security in place, but he didn't know what to do really at all. And he was really stressed out. It's really, really confusing. So, he really needed some help. Ooh. I'm walking away from the laptop now, so that's why it's not working, isn't it? I've broken it. Okay, never mind. There we go, okay. So, this is Crash. He's designed by a very, very talented friend of mine. And he's a little bit stressed on the picture, as you can see. Now, he knows that security is important. Security is important to everybody. Security is important to his organization and how they're going to work going forward. So he knows that his processes need to be embedded throughout an organization. He knows that, but he hasn't done anything about it. He's just kind of left everything there without really thinking about how he can do that for his organization. So he hasn't taken security seriously at all. So Crash is a dummy. He's a crash test dummy. And don't be like Crash. Well, he is at the moment, but we'll see what happens to him, shall we? So, Crash is a CEO of Dummy Inc. Now, Dummy Inc. is an organization it's a global organization. You've got offices all over the world. He handles personal and financial data. So things that he needs to put in place, regulatory compliance that he needs to adhere to, and he has massive aspirations to align to both NIST controls and ISO 27001. But as we learned earlier on, he's done none of that. There's nothing in place at all for him. So the legacy technology that he has in his organization is just really old tech that's not supported, and there are vulnerabilities everywhere. So he has no mechanism either of highlighting what those vulnerabilities are. So he's in the dark. He's got loads of data out there. He doesn't know what he's got, and he doesn't know how to protect it because he doesn't know what's there. So he has no way of scanning, identifying, or remediating the threats that are obvious within his organization. And his workforce, again, are not aware of what they need to be doing. And if they've never been told, and they don't work in security, they've never been told what they need to do to secure things, classify data, make sure that the regulations are adhered to, then they're in the dark too. That it's completely a mess. So something really has to change for the organization. So what can Crash do to increase his security posture? Has anyone got any ideas where he could start? Yeah? Do you want to get a new brain? Okay. Now that's actually not a bad idea, but unfortunately we're not very good at replacing brains these days yet. So we'll take, that can be a secondary option. Anyone else? Okay, so from, what Crash really needs to do is start from the very, very top in the organization. He needs to look at his security, his business objectives and match his business strategy to his business objectives, and then feed that down to his security objectives. So if you're looking at the business strategy as a whole, within any organization, it doesn't matter what size that organization is, you need to have a business strategy before you can have any objectives for your business, don't you? You need to be able to match what do you want to achieve as a business. Now, with security, in the way that I've seen from my experience within as a security professional, is that I have seen many organizations have just tried to shoehorn security in at any point. Now, yes, it's all well and good to put in operational controls. It's all well and good to make all of the technical controls and put them in ad hoc. But if you're not doing that in a process-driven or a streamlined way, it becomes much more complicated to maintain. It becomes complicated to match that to what you want to achieve as a business. So the way that Crash needs to do this is to look initially at his strategy and look at his security strategy as well. Make sure that his business objectives match the security controls and security processes he needs to put in as an organization. So making the most of the current tool set that he has in place is also a really good way of doing that. So if you've got a security strategy, you've probably got a lot of tech within an organization that you can use already. So you might have licenses for things that you're not making the most use of. So you might have additional controls that you can put in place without actually having to spend any money, which is a really good thing for a CEO who has never thought about security before. Regularly reviewing and maintaining all processes and technology on a regular basis is really, really important. And having those regular annual reviews or quarterly reviews mean that you can make changes to your strategy or make changes to your controls as and when you need to within the organization. Also, continually risk assessing. So having a risk assessment process, risk management process within an organization, really key to maintaining the security posture. So starting with a risk assessment, finding out what your gaps are, and then applying the relevant controls to adhere to that. So I've got basically the ways to make things easier for Crash. So have any of you worked or been involved in organizations where security isn't the top priority before? Yeah, I figured that might be the case. So it's, as we know, when you work in an organization where security isn't the highest priority, chances are you're going to be sat in a very difficult position because it's an afterthought. Security becomes an afterthought and it's shoehorned in just to match what you need to have, to say that you need to have something for a particular contract, for example. Having that in place, yes, you might get that contract, but it doesn't mean that you're maintaining and pushing forward to a better security posture as an organization. So my sort of key, I suppose they're my key areas of concern, key areas of key tips of where you should start is initially gaining the visibility of the data you actually have. Because within an organization, I can think of sort of 5 different areas off the top of my head that I hold my own personal data. Obviously there's many, many more, but initially if I think of those areas, within an organization, if you don't know what data you've got and where it is, how are you supposed to control it? So yes, it's all well and good to have security controls on your servers, but what happens if you've got, say, a mobile device management? You haven't got mobile device management. You've got people with their laptops and they can save whatever they want on those laptops and you have no control over that data because you don't know it exists if it's been saved elsewhere. So knowing exactly how your landscape looks and where the data is really, really important. Also enabling the access to the data and security and risk solutions to everybody within the organization. So having your MDM solutions in place, having the likes of, say, a VPN, making sure that you've got security controls on servers, you've got no default credentials being used on different devices. All of that sort of thing is really, really important as well. But without matching that to your process and your policy, how are you supposed to maintain it and make sure that it's done across the board? You've got to have a process that you follow to keep that going. Also, safeguarding and managing sensitive data across clouds, apps, and endpoints is really, really key. Now, there's tools that can help you with that going forward, but it is also it matches the other 2 points as well. So you need to know where that data is to safeguard it. You know that you've got cloud data, you might have on-prem data, you might also have data on laptops. You need to know that that's classified and maintained throughout the organization, and there's tool sets that can help you with that. Managing the end-to-end data risks and regulatory compliance as well. So I mentioned NIST controls and ISO 27001 earlier on, but this organization also has financial data and cardholder data. So the likes of PCI DSS, for example. So looking at that's a specific the specific controls within there that need to be adhered to make sure that you are within your within compliance of that regulatory standard. Also then, once you get to the end of all of this, you've got all of everything in place, you need your people to be able to maintain that, right? You need people to be able to maintain and govern, protect and manage the data in the new ways that you've put that in. So it's about making sure you've got a robust solution to carry that on and that you can assess that as you kind of work through. So now this is the top-down approach to managing the threat landscape that I would suggest to Dummy Inc. Now we talked through this earlier on, but starting with the business strategy, starting with the what the business wants to achieve and how you want to move forward as a business. If you've got your business strategy, that's your placeholder. That's what you're going to focus on all the way through this. Then, based on that business strategy, you have your key objectives. You need objectives of how you will get to that strategic vision. You can't make a strategy and then not have a plan of how you get there. So having your business objectives laid out is really, really important as well. What I would never suggest is going into an organization and saying, okay, yeah, this is our security strategy. This is what we're going to do for security, without actually looking at what the business wants to achieve, because otherwise people are just not going to follow that. There's no way that anybody's going to follow a security strategy that's not aligned to what the business wants to achieve. Also, then, once you've got your security objectives that are based on the business objectives, then you can look at your security control gap analysis. You can look at what you've got, where you want to be, and how you plan to achieve that security strategy. Then once you've got your control gap analysis, you can look at the policies, processes, and procedures for the organization. One thing that I've found in any organization that I've worked with is that documentation, I've never found an organization that's got full documentation. Has anybody had a full organization where everything's mapped in documented form? No, it's just not been something that has, that's at the top of everybody's priority list. But having a mechanism where your policies are written, that leads to your processes and that leads to your procedures, is really, really key to making sure that they're maintained. So documenting everything that you possibly can is really, really important. If somebody leaves an organisation and they have all this great knowledge in their head, you've lost that knowledge. You need that written down. Looking at operational tooling comes after all of that. You need to have your policies, your processes, and your procedures prior to deciding what tooling you need. You need a policy that's going to relate to that. So having then you can look at the different tools that will achieve the policy. Then once you've got the tooling in place, you can embed those controls to monitor and maintain the security of the organisation. So then you've got all of your solutions. You can put your SIEM in. You can put logging and monitoring in place. You can even have a SOC implemented in the organisation, depending on size. It all links to that first point about the business strategy, though. If your business is too small and you don't have the capability or the budget to be able to put in a SOC, you're not going to be able to do that, and you need something else that can plug that gap for you. So if Crash was to do all of this for Dummy Inc., for example, then that's what's going to increase the security posture of the organisation, but is also going to maintain it going forward and probably do more business, because if you've got a secure organisation, you tend to get more people interested. Okay, so let's say that Crash has done all of this and is now in an organisation that's fully secure as you can get, because you never get a fully secure organisation. So these are the steps that I would expect from a more mature organisation. You've gone from one maturity level to another. I would say that embedding that security strategy across the whole organisation with all of your employees involved in that conversation, being compliant with security industry best practice, so things that are best practice for the industry that you're in, but also the business that matches the business objectives, because different industries or different people within the same industry still have different objectives. Maintaining the security perimeter through embedding the security controls. Providing that real-time reporting as best you can around your data ecosystem is really, really important. I think if Dummy Inc. was to do that, they would know what data they have, they'd have it inventoried, and they'd be able to manage it. Having an accurate view of where the data is and how it's classified. So having a data classification system within the organisation where you know that, for example, financial data needs to be kept for a certain retention period. You know that you've got certain data which needs to be secret, certain data which needs to be confidential. Having that embedded is really key to any organisation. And monitoring a secure score, however you do that, is entirely up to an organisation, the organisation themselves, but having some kind of scoring matrix that you can follow to say, we're improving. If you've got some kind of reporting that pulls data from lots of areas, it doesn't have to be automated, but it's great if it is. Having something tangible you can say, we're doing better than we were before, is really, really important too. So, if Crash was to do all of this, Crash is the CEO of Dummy Inc. Now, he knows that data security is important and everybody's responsibility. He also knows that he has embedded processes now in order to secure the company data. He has used the industry-proven technological controls to secure that data, and he's embedded it throughout everything he does. So he's a security leader now. So be more like Crash. Are there any questions on anything at all? I've whizzed through that a bit. No? Okay, that's great. Yeah, go for it. So I haven't used these slides. This is definitely much more for this audience. But no, I would use slides that talk around the strategy and how you roadmap that into from a business strategy down into a security strategy. And it would be much more. I'd have Gantt charts and things that you would follow to get into that position. What I also tend to do is throw up a security a framework of policies and processes as well within an organisation, to make sure that people are aware of the types of documentation they need to be pushing through. But also, I'd probably be a little bit less agnostic, and I might say, these are some of the tools you could use to do that. Yeah, that sort of thing. Obviously, I've made this very agnostic today because I don't want to pinpoint anything specific. But yes, I would say I'd be much more. I suppose consultant. I'd be a consultant, and I'd go in and I'd make that. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone? I think everybody's had lunch and everyone's really tired now. I think that's what it is. I did joke I should have had pillows for everybody to have a nap. Yes. Yeah. And fix it. Yes, I think there's definitely a disconnect because you've got. So I'm obviously looking at quite a small size organisation. I've said they're a global organisation, but they're probably more. They've got a few little satellite offices in different places. But I would say, generally, if you've got a C-suite there and they're making strategy decisions, there is definitely a disconnect to the people on the ground. And that's where the embedding needs to take place. I've worked with organisations where you have where there's been an engineer writing a policy, and I don't think that's the way that should be. That if you've got an engineer on the ground writing the policy, and then writing the procedure, chances are that's not going up to the C-suite either in the same way that it should. There's a disconnecting process from the business strategy to the security strategy is what I've noticed from organisations. 9 times out of 10, smaller organisations don't have a security strategy anyway. You'll go in and that's just not there. And I find that if they do have a security strategy, it's usually that they've brought somebody in to do that for them because they don't have the people to be able to do that. It's really important that that's embedded from the top down though. Really, really important. Yeah. 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 So if somebody said that their E5 licensing so they want E5, but that's too expensive, so they're not going for it because they can't afford it. And so how would they plug that gap? Is that question? Yeah. So there's ways to do that, and there's ways of compensating controls, and that's all clinched on the risk assessment. So if somebody says yes, absolutely, they want the best of the best, they're not going to get necessarily the best of the best because their budget's this small. They have a certain risk appetite, and that risk appetite will then that will be what influences the decisions that they make going forward. So having that discussion with them, if they say yes, this is what we want, we can't afford it, we want that control, then you look at the different tool set that they can afford, or the different add-ons. Because if they can't afford E5, but they want to go for, say, E3 or similar, or they want to go, if they're smaller and they want to go for a business license and they want add-ons for certain tools, but they can't have everything, then there's mechanisms, there's other tools out there that can be used to plug that gap. I would be inclined, depending on the organisation, to have that discussion as to whether or not they need E5. If they need E5 for the mechanisms and the tools that they want to implement, then they either need to look at the ways and means of quantifying why that's important, so and costing that into their budget going forward. So they either cost it further down the line, or they work out how much they're going to save by doing that. And that's, if they do, great. If they can't, then look at the compensating controls and different ways of working. Any other questions? Yeah. Sorry, I missed that. So my personal opinion is that everything within a business strategy has to have some kind of a security link to it. There's so you might look at the budgetary constraints, but you're also going to have so there's obviously IT elements to the security strategy, but you've got physical security as well, which is a big concern across the organisation. Environmental as well hits on security. You've got every element, everything that they do is really, really important to look at the security through a security lens as well. And that should feed directly into the security strategy. The business objectives specifically, if the organisation is lucky enough to have a CISO or somebody who's leading security within the organisation, they should then be part of that discussion around the business strategy anyway. So that's how they build their security strategy out. But yes, absolutely everything within the business strategy needs to hit on security. Anything else? Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much.